Nerd alert! Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert!
Right. Hello, and welcome to The Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hello, Elena. My brain has been doing jumping jacks, just trying to warm up for this nerd alert.
Perfect. Then I've got high expectations. You'll like this one. We're back with your weekly nerd alert. Every week, I'll take a deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob and, of course, for all of you. So, Rob, are you ready to nerd out?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get into it. As always, I'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week, I read What Makes Online Content Viral, a paper by Jonah Berger, who you might recognize as the author of the best-selling book Contagious, and also a Wharton professor, and Katherine Milkman, an economist and also a professor at Wharton. So, Rob, have you ever had something go viral?
Well, as an agency, we've definitely had things go viral in the past. One thing that comes to mind is the jingle that was done by the agency for Stuffies. And how much stuff can you stuff in a Stuffy till your Stuffy can stuff enough stuff? And it ended up going viral and being sung on The Tonight Show. And so, yeah, we've definitely had things that have gone viral in the past, for sure.
What do you think are those key ingredients to making something go viral?
It kind of makes me laugh when people are like, yeah, we should really do like a viral video. Because you're like, oh, good. I'm glad you clarified that you wanted it to go viral versus because we weren't going to make it go viral, you know? So I think that that's a holy grail that people all kind of throw out there. Yeah, let's go make a viral video. You know, are there certain key elements that could potentially help something go more viral than another? For sure. I mean, obviously things like emotional engagement, those are just table stakes, right? Humor, joy, outrage, whatever that might be. Newsjacking, like when you really get into the timing and the relevance of a particular advertisement, that can definitely add fuel to the fire. How shareable are you making it? Is there some level of a call to action so that you are asking people to share? It's all of those things. And then that one thing that nobody knows and everybody wishes they knew, because then everything would go viral.
Well, you came really close to the formula we're going to talk about today.
Oh, nice.
That was great. Good job, Rob. You said it's a holy grail a little bit. I agree with you. I think that's funny when people say, oh, I'm going to make this go viral. Like, can't always have total control over that. But these researchers, they decided to do the best they could to put together some sort of framework for why things go viral. How do you make them go viral?
I'm excited to hear this.
This one's really fun. So they have examined how the different characteristics of content drive two things: social transmission and virality. So social transmission refers to the process of individuals sharing information with one another, typically within your personal network. Virality, on the other hand, is used to describe content that spreads rapidly and widely across different networks, often reaching large audiences. Essentially, while all viral content relies on social transmission to spread, so it relies on you sharing it with someone you know and they share it, not all content that's socially transmitted achieves virality. That denotes a broader and more accelerated spread. So Berger and Milkman, they examine whether positive content is more viral than negative content. And they even go further to look at how specific emotions evoked by content drive social transmission. So let's talk about their research. They studied transmission in two ways. They investigated the virality of nearly 7,000 articles over a 3-month period from the New York Times. They examined how emotion, valence, and specific emotions evoked by an article affected the likelihood of it making the most emailed list. And second, they then conducted a series of lab experiments to test the process they believe is responsible for those effects they observed from the articles. Their hypothesis was that content that evokes high arousal emotion is more likely to be shared. So, Rob, before we get into the details of the New York Times research, I wanted to ask you, what's the last article that you shared with somebody else?
Boy, I'm in a real sharing mood right now as it relates to all things AI, because there's just new news and articles popping up daily. Probably the most recent being, I've been fascinated by Udio, the music generator, and they were touting this song that was created based on the movie Dune, but it was like Dune, the Broadway song. And so I thought it was really entertaining. And yeah, so I definitely shared that article a lot.
So maybe a feeling of awe a little bit with some of this AI stuff? you're sharing?
Absolutely. You feel like you want to be in the know and you want to be able to share what you're learning with other people, for sure.
I think your experience does match what they found, but let's review the research. They looked at all these articles and they recorded details such as the article's title, the author, the content, and then the emotions they evoked. Whether the articles made people feel angry, sad, anxious, or in awe. They also considered how positive or negative the content was based on the language used. One of the key parts of this study was the control for external factors that could influence an article's virality. So, this includes the placement of the article on the New York Times website, how prominently it was featured, and the duration it stayed on the homepage. By controlling these variables, the researchers could isolate the effect of the content's emotional impact on its likelihood to be shared. And here's what they found: articles that evoked high arousal emotions, such as awe, anger, or anxiety, were significantly more likely to be shared. Content that provoked low arousal emotions, like sadness, had a lower chance of being shared. This suggests that it's not just whether content is emotionally charged, but the type of emotion it evokes that influences sharing. The study also found that positivity in articles also had a strong effect on their virality. Articles with a positive tone were more likely to be shared than those with a negative tone, suggesting that while negative content can also go viral, positive content has a better chance of spreading widely.
I'm surprised and I'm glad to hear that because when you talked earlier about negative versus positive, I'm like, gosh, I bet you negative works better than positive because we're all a bunch of grumpy human beings. But I'm really glad to hear that the positivity was the winner.
I was thinking about that too. And I think we might feel like we get more negative content shared, but I think that's because that sticks with you more. If I actually think about what gets sent to me every single day by people, most of it's happy. It's funny videos. It's my mom sending, like, oh, look at these baby farm animals. And every once in a while, you get that newsletter forward from your grandma that's like, the sky is falling. But I think we remember that more, but more people like to share fun stuff. So then let's talk about study two. They took these results that they found from looking at the articles and they wanted to see how specific high arousal emotions, amusement, and anger affect the likelihood of content being shared. This study consists of two sub experiments, study 2A and study 2B. All right, this is really fun. So, in the first study, they looked at how amusement influences sharing. Participants were given two versions of a story about fictional advertising. These were campaigns for Jimmy Dean sausages. So, one version, I don't know why it's like, that's funny to me. Yeah.
Already
Um,
funny.
one version was designed to be funny. And listen, this is what they did in the study. I'm not saying it's okay that they did this. They had Jimmy Dean hire a rabbi to promote pork sausages, which I guess is.
Oh, jeez.
I know. Rob, this is what it did. They said this in the study.
Okay. So offensive. Yes.
I know. Okay. The other version was less amusing, with Jimmy Dean hiring a farmer as a spokesperson. Again, I'm not saying it's okay what they did in this study, but this is what they did.
Okay.
After reading the stories, participants rated how likely they were to share it. Results showed that the high amusement version of the story generated more amusement and was more likely to be shared.
Could it have been shared for other reasons?
I don't know. We're going to move on.
Okay.
This is study two. They had participants read one of two versions of a real customer service incident involving United Airlines, with which, Rob, you've probably heard of this, where baggage handlers damaged a musician's guitar. The high anger version painted United in a particularly negative light, with no compensation offered for the damages and apparent lack of concern by the airline staff, titled United Smashes Guitars. The low anger version, titled United Dents Guitars, portrayed the airline as somewhat responsive and willing to assist with the damages. Similar to the first experiment, participants in the high anger condition reported a greater willingness to share the story. So I know we said that sadness doesn't always work. Unfortunately, anger does get people going. That does get people sharing stuff.
Right.
So in conclusion, these experiments, they demonstrated a clear pattern. Content that evokes higher arousal, whether through positive or negative emotions, tends to be shared more frequently. So to summarize, positive content overall is more viral than negative content. But the relationship between emotion and how much something is shared is not as simple as just positive versus negative emotion. Virality is partially driven by psychological arousal. So content that evokes high arousal, like awe, or negative, like anger, anxiety, is more viral. Content that evokes low arousal, like sadness, is less viral. And these results are even the same when they controlled for how surprising, interesting, or practically useful the content is. And all of that is still positively linked to virality. They also controlled external drivers of attention, like whether the article was featured on the homepage or not. So if you're interested, please go read the whole study. There's lots more details. The amount of detail that they went into specifically controlling for outside factors within the New York Times was really, really interesting. So, all right, Rob, what did you think of that one?
I think this really hits home. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we all saw the reaction that occurred when Apple released the iPad Pro campaign, where it was smashing a bunch of stuff into an iPad, and people were angry about it. And it really went viral. They felt like it was discrediting all of the creatives that put their lives on the line and cheapened it and smashed it into an iPad. And they got ticked off, and Apple ended up pulling the ad, but not before it made headlines in all of the press. So I definitely can see how it's interesting about anger, how that can kind of elevate things. I like the fact that it is that the positive stuff that we're sharing is really meaningful as well. That makes me feel better about humanity.
You just did a great job of covering what I wanted to close with, which is how could this apply to marketing? Because I think a lot of marketers get that assignment, like, oh, we want to make this go viral. And there's no guarantee something's going to go viral. But if you focus on creating content that triggers those high arousal emotions, such as excitement, joy, or in Apple's case, they probably didn't want this to happen, but they ignited that sense of righteous anger. Something is probably going to have a better chance of going viral. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Ayana Klaphocky for producing the show and Taylor De Los Reyes for editing. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you find the show valuable, please leave us a rating and review. And if you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our weekly email newsletter. It's built for marketers seeking research-first analysis of the latest trends. You can go to marketingarchitects.com/newsletter to subscribe. Now go forth and build great marketing.
I have not. Well, sorry, you didn't tell me you were going to ask me that question.
Did I not include that one? I'm sorry.